Hello, and welcome back. Tonight, we walk among the marble ruins of a world that once thought it would last forever. For 1,000 years, the name of Rome was a symbol of absolute power, law, and civilization. But even the strongest empires are built on shifting sands. The fall of Rome was not a single moment, but a long, slow fading of a great light. It is a story of internal rot, external storms, and the inevitable cycle of time. Before we witness the final days of the Caesars, if you find wisdom in the echoes of history, please like this video and subscribe. We look back at the ruins to understand the world we live in today. Close your eyes. Imagine the dust settling on the Forum. Let us travel back to the fall of the eternal city. Fact 1. The overstretched border. At its height, the empire stretched from the rain-swept hills of Scotland to the burning sands of the Sahara. But this immense size became its greatest weakness. Communicating across thousands of miles was agonizingly slow, and the cost of defending such vast borders was astronomical. The empire was like a giant athlete whose heart could no longer pump blood to its furthest limbs. To protect every frontier, Rome had to build endless walls and maintain a massive standing army, which drained the treasury. Eventually, the borders became porous, and the Eternal City realized it was too big to protect, proving that power has a limit and that even the grandest reach can lead to a fall. Fact 2. The split of the soul. In the year 285, Emperor Diocletian made a decision that changed history. He concluded that the empire was too large to be ruled by one man and split it into two halves, the East and the West. While this was meant to provide stability, it actually created a deep divide in the Roman soul. The Eastern Empire, centered in Constantinople, grew wealthy and strong, while the Western Empire, with Rome at its heart, began to wither. They spoke different languages, followed different priorities, and often refused to help each other in times of crisis. What was once a unified force became two brothers drifting apart, weakening the very foundation of the Roman identity.
Fact 3. The economic rot, hyperinflation. Long before the barbarians reached the gates, the Roman economy was collapsing from within. To pay for endless wars and luxurious lifestyles, emperors began debasing the currency, mixing cheap metals like copper into the silver denarius. Soon, the coins were practically worthless, and prices for bread and oil skyrocketed. The people lost faith in their money, and the once vibrant trade networks of the Mediterranean began to crumble. Wealthy citizens fled the cities to escape taxes, building fortified estates in the countryside. This internal economic rot turned the mighty empire into a hollow shell, proving that no army can save a nation if its heart, the economy, has stopped beating. Fact 4. The lead poisoning theory. For decades, historians have whispered about a silent killer that may have weakened the Roman elite: lead poisoning. The Romans were masters of engineering, and they used lead for their massive plumbing systems, their cooking pots, and even as a sweetener for their wine. Some scholars suggest that the constant exposure to lead led to neurological problems, infertility, and madness among the ruling class. Imagine the leaders of the world's most powerful empire slowly losing their minds and their health to the very technology they created. Whether it was the primary cause or just a contributing factor, it serves as a haunting metaphor for a civilization being slowly poisoned by its own success. Fact 5. The chaos of the thrones, political instability. One of the most devastating internal wounds of the Roman Empire was the constant, bloody struggle for the throne. During a single 50-year period in the 3rd century, more than 20 men claimed the title of emperor to protect them. This endless cycle of betrayal meant that no leader could focus on the long-term survival of the state. Laws were constantly changed, the administration was paralyzed by fear, and the people lost all faith in their government. Rome proved that an empire can survive many external storms, but it cannot survive a heart that is constantly tearing itself apart from within. Fact 6. The barbarian hired hands. As the Roman population declined and citizens grew tired of war, the empire began to do something dangerous. They hired barbarian tribes to fight in their armies. These foederati were fierce warriors, but their loyalty was not to the idea of Rome, but to their own gold and their own leaders. Eventually, the Roman army was made up of the very people it was supposed to be keeping out. In many battles, the soldiers on both sides of the line spoke the same Germanic languages. Rome had essentially handed the keys of its gates to its enemies, forgetting that an empire defended by outsiders is an empire that has already lost its soul. Fact 7. The Huns and the Great Migration. From the deep forests of the East, a terrifying force arrived that pushed the world toward Rome, the Huns. These nomadic warriors were so fast and so brutal that they triggered a massive Great Migration of Germanic tribes. Groups like the Goths and Vandals were not just invading Rome, they were running for their lives from the Huns. They crashed against the Roman borders like a tidal wave, seeking land and safety. Rome, unable to handle the sheer number of refugees and invaders, began to drown. The Huns were the invisible hand that shook the tree of Europe until the Roman fruit finally fell to the ground. Fact 8. The Sack of Rome, 410 AD. For 800 years, the city of Rome had not fallen to a foreign enemy. It was thought to be untouchable, the eternal city. But in August 410, the impossible happened. The Visigoths, led by Alaric, broke through the gates and plundered the city for 3 days. The world was in shock. When the news reached the far corners of the empire, people wept in the streets, realizing that if Rome could fall, nothing was safe. The physical damage was limited, but the psychological damage was total. The myth of Roman invincibility was shattered forever, and the city that had ruled the world became a ghost of its former self. Fact 9. The Plague of Cyprian. The empire was not only fighting human enemies, it was fighting an invisible one. In the 3rd century, a terrifying pandemic known as the Plague of Cyprian swept through the provinces. At its height, it was reported that 5,000 people were dying every day in Rome alone. The plague decimated the labor force, emptied the villages, and left the army without enough soldiers to man the walls. The constant fear of death broke the social fabric of the empire. It is a reminder that nature is the ultimate decider of history, that a tiny virus can do more damage to an empire than 1,000 barbarian spears. Fact 10. The last emperor, Romulus Augustulus. The end of the Western Roman Empire came not with a bang, but with a quiet surrender. In 476 AD, a young boy named Romulus Augustulus, carrying the names of both Rome's founder and its first great emperor, was deposed by the Germanic leader Odoacer. Odoacer didn't even bother to kill the boy. He simply sent him into retirement and sent the imperial crown to Constantinople. The office of the emperor in the West simply ceased to exist. The title that had commanded the world for 5 centuries was gone. It was a silent, almost unnoticed end to an era, proving that sometimes history ends with a whisper in a cold room. Fact 11. The Vandals and the Ruin of Africa. While the Goths pressured the north, a Germanic tribe called the Vandals performed a daring feat. They crossed the sea and conquered Roman North Africa. This was a fatal blow. North Africa was the breadbasket of the Western Empire, providing the massive amounts of grain needed to feed the city of Rome. When Carthage fell to the Vandals, Rome lost its food supply and its richest tax base. The Vandals then built a powerful navy and in 455 AD sailed across the Mediterranean to sack Rome once again, this time with even more brutality. They didn't just take gold, they broke the very spirit of the city, leaving it starving and broken. Fact 13. The climate's cold shoulder. History is often shaped by the weather, and Rome was no exception. During its peak, Rome enjoyed the Roman warm period with stable weather and bountiful harvests. However, around the 3rd and 4th centuries, the climate began to cool and become unpredictable. This late antique Little Ice Age led to shorter growing seasons and frequent droughts. As the food supply shrank, people became malnourished and more susceptible to disease. The changing climate also pushed northern tribes southward in search of warmer, fertile lands, creating a domino effect of migration that the Roman borders could not withstand. It teaches us that even the most advanced societies are ultimately at the mercy of the Earth's shifting cycles. Fact 14. The collapse of infrastructure. Rome was famous for its roads, aqueducts, and public baths, the high-tech infrastructure of the ancient world. But as the central government lost its wealth, it could no longer maintain these wonders. The legendary Roman roads, which once allowed armies to move at lightning speed, fell into disrepair and became overgrown with weeds. Aqueducts were cut during sieges or crumbled because there was no money for repairs. Without clean water and easy travel, the great cities of the empire began to shrink into small, fortified villages. The loss of infrastructure was the physical sign that the light of civilization was dimming, turning a connected world into a series of isolated islands. Fact 15. The brain drain to the east. As the Western Empire crumbled, the brightest minds, the richest families, and the best bureaucrats fled to the east. Constantinople, the new Rome, became the center of gravity. It was safer, wealthier, and better defended. This brain drain left the city of Rome and its surrounding provinces without the leadership and talent needed to solve its mounting problems. While the East survived for another 1,000 years as the Byzantine Empire, the West was left as a hollow shell, abandoned by its own elite. It is a reminder that the strength of a nation lies not just in its walls, but in the people who are willing to stay and rebuild them. The forgotten libraries. In the chaos of the invasions and the collapse of the social order, the great libraries of the West began to disappear. Literacy rates plummeted as the education system, once a source of Roman pride, broke down. Countless scrolls of ancient philosophy, science, and history were lost to fire, moisture, or simply neglect. In many places, the only people who kept the flame of knowledge alive were monks in distant monasteries, painstakingly copying manuscripts by candlelight. The fall of Rome was also a fall into silence, a loss of collective memory that plunged the West into a period of darkness where much of the wisdom of the ancients was forgotten for centuries. Fact 17. The end of the urban dream. At its height, the city of Rome had a population of over 1 million people, a feat not repeated in Europe until the 19th century. But by the time the empire officially fell, that number had dropped to less than 50,000. People abandoned the magnificent marble forums to live in the ruins of stadiums and theaters. They planted vegetable gardens in the middle of once busy marketplaces. The urban dream of Rome, the idea of a shared, sophisticated city life, was replaced by the harsh reality of feudalism. This mass exodus from the cities redefined the human landscape, shifting the focus of life from the public square to the private fortified farm. Fact 18. The ghost of the Colosseum. The Colosseum, once the site of grand spectacles and the roar of thousands, became a symbol of the fall. During the final years, there was no money for gladiatorial games or wild animal hunts. Parts of the massive structure were used as a quarry, with people stripping away the marble and melting down the iron clamps that held the stones together. It became a fortress, a cemetery, and even a housing complex for the poor.
The giant building stood like a skeleton in the middle of a shrinking city, a haunting reminder of a past that the current inhabitants could no longer understand or afford. It proves that monuments can outlive the civilizations that built them, but only as echoes of a lost grandeur. Fact 19. The survival of the Latin tongue. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of the fallen empire is the air we breathe when we speak. As the empire broke apart, the Latin language began to evolve in different regions, eventually becoming the Romance languages: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. Even English is filled with thousands of Latin words. Every time we speak of justice, liberty, or community, we are speaking the ghost of a dead empire's language. Rome didn't truly die. It simply dissolved into the voices of the people who inhabited its ruins. The fall of the state was the birth of a new linguistic world that still connects millions of people across the globe. Fact 20. The Eternal City. Conclusion. Rome is called the Eternal City not because its empire lasted forever, but because it has the power to reinvent itself. The fall of Rome taught the world that no power is permanent and that every civilization has a spring, a summer, and a winter. But it also showed that from the ruins of the old, the seeds of the new are always sown. The Middle Ages, the Renaissance, and the modern world were all born from the fragments of the Roman collapse. As you sleep tonight, remember that even in the face of great change, the light of human achievement never truly goes out. It simply changes shape. We are all, in some way, children of Rome. Conclusion. The final echo. The marble is cold. The sun has set on the empire. As you drift into sleep, let the lessons of history calm your soul. Everything has its time. Everything has its season. Sleep in peace, knowing that even from the ruins, something beautiful will always grow.